right, guys, welcome back to the Casual Combat Podcast. It's been a while since we've recorded an episode. I think we are 2 weeks off, but now we are back for UFC 258, which is Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. And not much to recap from last weekend. Corey Sandhagen knocked out Frankie Edgar in epic fashion. Alistair Overeem might be retired, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the fights. Cal, how you doing?
Good, yeah. Some bangers last weekend. We got another nice weekend. Not the strongest pay-per-view ever, but definitely a fun main event.
Yeah, it definitely. I seem to always be a little bit disappointed in the undercards for main events, but I know that's because they're always paying a champion. I know that they just can't afford to really put together banger cards and still make money off of them, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Well, we might as well get right into it. The first fight I wanted to highlight, it's the last fight of the early prelims, is Ricky Simón versus Brian Kelleher. Ricky Simón is a minus 265 favorite. He's fresh off that win on January 20th. He won via submission. Brian Kelleher is a plus 205 underdog. Brian Kelleher is 22-11. He's been around for a while. Although 2020 was a good year for him, though he was 3-1 in 2020. He's 6-4 in total in the UFC. His one loss last year was to Cody Stamann. So not a bad loss. Brian Kelleher, you can look at the guys he's fought, the guys he's beat, and the guys he's lost to. Not a whole bunch of really impressive names on either side of that. He's definitely a journeyman who's been here. He can throw a bomb every once in a while. He had a nice knockout earlier last year, but no one who was ever going to challenge for a belt, but someone who's going to fight a lot and is fun to get excited about. He's fighting Ricky Simón, as I mentioned, who is 17-3, 5-2 in the UFC, and his most recent impressive win is over Ray Borg. His two losses in the UFC are to Rob Font and Uriah Faber, so nothing to scoff at with those two losses. This is a fun fight. These should be people that if you've been following fighting for the past year, you know who these guys are just because you've probably seen them on a card.
Dude, I think that this fight belongs on the main card. I don't – maybe it's just to get attraction to the earlier fights, but this is a banger.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of fights after this that are not as good as this fight. I think Ricky Simón's probably going to look pretty dominant here.
I agree. I don't see Ricky Simón dropping this one, but you never know. Kelleher can throw a bomb and
yeah, I just have trouble seeing that. And like you said, but Kelleher's never stepped up and beat a guy like this.
Correct. Absolutely.
But who knows? Maybe this will be the time.
Yeah. Moving on to one of the first fights on the undercard, or the prelims, I'm sorry, is a women's fight, Poliana Viana versus Mallory Martin. This one's weird because Mallory Martin does have a common opponent with Poliana Viana, which is I'm drawing a blank. Cyphers. What's Cyphers' first name? Hannah Cyphers. Poliana Viana lost to Cyphers. Mallory Martin has beaten Hannah Cyphers. Mallory Martin has a loss to Macy Barber, which we're going to talk about later on the show today. And the one that throws me off is that Poliana Viana handed Amanda Hebos her first professional loss. Now, that was a while ago. And Poliana Viana has lost 3 of her last 4, whereas Mallory Martin has won 4 of her last 5. I don't know what the odds are on this fight. I've got to go with Mallory Martin, but I am not confident in this one. This is a pretty equal fight in my eyes.
Yep. Another instance where we're seeing girls who have fought a lot of the same competition and a lot of names we know, but could be a big one for either of them, whoever gets it.
Exactly. This would be a quality win for either.
Yep. Agreed. Moving right along here, the next fight on the card is Bilal Muhammad versus Diego Lima. Muhammad is a minus 335 favorite, so he's a heavy favorite. He is on a 3-win streak. He is a total record of 17-3, 7-1 since 2017, with his one loss being to Jeff Neal. Diego Lima is a plus 255 underdog. He's 17-7, 4-5 in the UFC. And that 4-5 is stretched over 7 years, so he's never been a guy who has been super active. He does have a win over Court McGee and a win over Tim Mean, so people you may know their name. I think Muhammad's probably on a totally different level than Diego Lima and is going to be much sharper than him in this fight.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see Bilal Muhammad dropping this one, but I do have to say Diego Lima is a dog. Obviously, the brother of Douglas Lima, the Bellator legend. I believe Diego Lima might have won the Ultimate Fighter one of the later seasons. I believe it was at middleweight. Is this fight at middleweight? I believe.
I believe so.
But like, I think he's one not to count out, but I do agree with you. I think Bilal Muhammad is a better fighter and should, by all means, win this fight.
I think Bilal Muhammad is potentially a top 10 fighter in the division, to be completely honest.
I agree. I think he's unproven, and I think he's had one or two hiccups along the way that I don't think necessarily make sense. But
well, I believe he started out. I said he's 7-1 since 2017. I think 2016 he might have been, maybe 2015 to 2016 he was like 1-3 to start his UFC career.
That's
like that. Or 1-2, I suppose. If he's
sometimes when you start out like that in the promotion, you've got a long way up. You know, because
he probably had to win a fight or two at some point just to stay in the promotion.
Yes, exactly.
But then that loss to Jeff Neal means nothing to me. He's one of the toughest guys in this division as well. It was only a month or two ago that I was saying that he was going to beat Wonder Boy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. How quickly things can change.
Yeah.
Moving on in our next fight, we have Rodolfo Vieira versus Anthony Hernandez. Anthony Hernandez, his nickname's Fluffy. I don't have a lot of faith in him. He has no casual wins. He has a loss to Kevin Holland, a loss to Marcus Perez, whereas Rodolfo Vieira his nickname is the Black Belt Hunter, and he is 7-0 in his professional career with 7 finishes via submission. I've got Rodolfo Vieira via strangulation. I'm super excited for this one. Not because I think it's going to be a good fight, because I think Vieira definitely needs to step up in competition, but they gave him Fluffy. So
Black Belt Killer.
So I'm so excited for this one.
That's a fantastic nickname.
Yeah, and on his Tapology page, he has just as many professional grappling bouts sprinkled in with his MMA bouts. So he's very active in both sports, and I'm excited to see him in the octagon. This is, I believe, his 3rd fight in the UFC, maybe his 4th, but he's relatively new to the promotion, and I think a win here, making him 8-0 with 8 finishes, would really put him into kind of the up-and-comer category.
Yeah, definitely a nice prospect the UFC has there.
Yes, and it's always nice to see these prospects that are a little different. You know, it's not, I mean, don't get me wrong, we all love the 9-0, 8 knockout prospects, but it's nice to see a guy that is truly a specialist.
Yeah. Which, until someone can stop it, that's awesome. But
yeah. Now, in his grappling matches, he does have some losses, which scares me that he's not maybe as dominant as maybe a Damian Maia or, Gilbert Burns or somebody of that caliber, but we'll see.
Who knows, though? Maybe he's a guy who has respectable enough striking that it's too dangerous to stand with him, and that probably wouldn't translate over to people who are strict grapplers.
True.
But, yeah, that's a fun guy to watch for sure.
It is.
I believe this may be the first fight already on the main card. There's not a ton of fights on this.
No, it's
main event.
I think there's 5. There's 5 on the main card.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, like, overall, this card isn't huge.
Oh yeah, no, this is a very small
12
card.
Fights.
Yeah.
And we got Jim Miller versus Bobby Green. And I was laughing when you announced the last fight, the names of the fighters.
Yeah.
Pronounced them so well. And I'm like, if you could just always give me fighters' names who are Jim Miller and Bobby Green, I will get those 100% of the time.
You don't like Rodolfo?
No.
All right.
But both these guys are guys who have been around for quite some time now. Jim Miller is 32-15. He is a plus 200 favorite. His biggest win ever would probably be over Clay Guida, who we saw get a win last weekend.
Dude, and I'm going to stop you right quick. Clay Guida looked great.
I know.
I can't believe it. We'll talk about that maybe later. Probably not, but yeah. Clay Guida just got another 4-fight contract as well. I'm so pumped.
It's awesome, yeah. And why not?
Why not?
We like to watch. But yeah, Jim Miller has been like the guy who every time he'll get 2 wins, and that's kind of why he's 32-15 probably. He'll get about 2 wins. Be looking pretty decent, get 1 real fight, and he loses. And he also loses some of the not really good fighters. But it seems like if you go back and look at him, every year he's about 2-1. He'll win 2, get pounded, and then lose. He's got losses to people like Charles Oliveira, Dan Hooker, Dustin Poirier, Anthony Pettis, and then his last one was to Vince Pichel, who I don't know that much about. I'm not going to lie. I wasn't that impressed. I think I actually picked Jim Miller. I refer to him as the parlay killer because every time I pick him, he loses, and every time I don't pick him, he wins.
Perfect.
I know he upset he fought a guy named Roosevelt last year who was a huge favorite. And Jim Miller submitted him in 50 seconds or something. Took him down and submitted him. But anyways,
Jim Miller
fighting Bobby Green, who's 27-11, minus 260 favorite. His bigger losses are to Dustin Poirier, and then most recently he has lost to Francisco Trinaldo. Kind of a guy who's in the same boat. I'm surprised these odds are this spread apart. I'm not overly impressed with either of these guys, but 2 household names that you most likely have seen fight at some point, and it's worth watching.
Yeah, I really do like Bobby Green's beard when he trims it into those spikes. I like that. Yeah. I think that's really cool, especially if you're a cage fighter.
I'm considering doing that. Please throw the beard back out
for next week's episode, please. If Bobby Green wins, please shave your beard like that.
I'll do my best. But yeah, I don't know. I got a feeling Jim Miller's going to win this one. I think he's sneaky.
I'll disagree with you just for the sake of I think this is the only one that I know it's not the only one we're going to disagree on, but I just want to disagree just to disagree. I don't know who's going to win this fight, but I'm on team Bobby Green, baby.
Yeah, I would. If you had asked me what the odds were, I would have said they were minus 110 each way. I would assume it was a pick and fight. Like, who knows?
Yeah, I think. Yeah. All right. Moving on, we have a bout that again is confusing and a tough one to pick. I don't know what the odds are, but it's Maki Pitolo versus Julian Marquez. And I have an unconventional pick here, and I'll tell you that I'm picking Maki Pitolo. He's an alum of Dana White's Contender Series. We just saw him lose I believe it was a unanimous decision to Impa Kasanganay. He has losses, like I said, to Impa Kasanganay. He has a loss to Darren Stewart, and I would say that Maki Pitolo is the epitome of an average fighter in the UFC, right? He's going to beat the guys that he's supposed to beat. I don't believe that he's going to beat a guy that would be considered an upset, all right? And Julian Marquez, a little bit older. He most recently is coming off of a loss to Alessio Di Chirico, and has wins over Darren Stewart, who has a win over Maki Pitolo, and a win over Phil Hawes, who right now is just crushing people. But his last fight was in 2018. And from the picture, I don't have the stat here, he looks a little older due to the fact that he's been inactive for almost 3 years, and that Maki Pitolo is just, I believe, hitting his prime and active. I want to go with Maki Pitolo. I think that the odds probably favor Julian Marquez, but I don't know. I'm feeling gutsy on this one.
Yeah, I did a quick check. Maki Pitolo is a plus 145 underdog.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not a crazy pick, but
no, yeah.
But I just look back at some of the guys that have come back after taking some time off, and lately that has not been the greatest recipe for success. Thinking most clearly about Conor McGregor and Dominic Cruz, but there's also the guy that got dropped on his head by Jordan Wright and slammed. He was like coming back for the first time in a while.
That was like he took an extended. That guy was back from like 2012.
Yeah, and
Brian Ortega.
Ortega looked great.
Yeah,
but I think that the data shows that recently taking big breaks doesn't help.
Yeah, I would agree.
Ponzinibbio as well. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I'm on team.
You and I have even seen that in college wrestling. The guys who take a gray shirt. Most of the time, that nothing pans out after your gray shirt year in Division III wrestling.
Yeah, except for Thomas O'Brien, who came back with a vengeance.
And I also took a gray shirt too.
Oh, you did? I forgot about that. Oh, jeez. I hope Thomas.
That's okay. We don't need to worry about that.
I forgot.
Oh, no worries. It didn't really count because it's my freshman year, so it's mostly just like I didn't do it.
Yeah.
The next fight, we got Kelvin Gaslum and Ian Heinisch. Gaslum is the greatest loser ever.
I was
And
gonna say that too.
he's 11-5 in the UFC. And these are 11-5 in the UFC, and these are his losses, which he must be 11-6 in the UFC based on his amount of losses to people. His losses are to Jack Hermanson, Darren Till, Israel Adesanya, Chris Weidman, Neil Magny, Tyron Woodley, and Uriah Hall. Now, out of all of those losses, 3 of them are split decisions. He has a split decision loss to Tyron Woodley, a split decision loss to Neil Magny, and a split decision loss to Darren Till. And statistically, I believe he's fought Israel Adesanya to the toughest fight in like the past 3 years.
Yeah, dude, I always when I started getting into MMA, like Izzy was getting big, and I knew that Izzy was really good. I'm still a casual, obviously, but I remember Kelvin Gaslum going to war with Izzy, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Kelvin Gastelum is good, and I don't think he's won since. I don't. Every time I see him fight,
Till and Jack Hermanson after.
Yeah, and every time I see him fight, I'm like, ooh, Kelvin Gastelum, he's gonna win, and he never wins.
Doesn't look like he should. Like,
no, he's fat and gross, and so he's gonna hear this and come hunt me. But I always think that he's so good, and then I've never seen him win.
He does have wins over Michael Bisping and Jacare Souza, which are 2 solid wins. But in a world where maybe a different refs, or he landed a couple more blows, this guy could easily have wins over Neil Magny, Tyron Woodley, and Darren Till. And then how would we look at him?
As a legend.
Yeah. But in this fight, he's got Ian Heinisch. So they finally were like, all right, let's not give you a potential champ. Ian Heinisch is 14-3. He's 3-2 in the UFC. His biggest win is against Gerald Meerschaert, who he knocked out. His losses aren't bad. He's got a loss to Derek Brunson, which was a decision loss, and he has a loss to Amari Akhmedov, which was also another decision loss. So Ian Heinisch is nothing to laugh at. He's a plus 170 underdog. Gaslum's a minus 210 favorite. I think Kelvin Gaslum is still really tough and is going to get a win here.
I agree.
I really want him to, and I want him to be bad when I look at him.
Yeah.
Like, and not because I actually want him to be bad, but just like my mind says, this guy is not a guy who can go to war with Israel Adesanya or have a split decision with Darren Till.
I agree. And I don't know what his background is. I know on the UFC games, he's considered a wrestler. I don't know if he like wrestled collegiate. I don't know anything about Kelvin Gastelum outside of what I've seen in the UFC, but he's such an anomaly.
Yeah. He's just a dog. That's his background.
He's a dog.
He's in a dog fight. The other thing I found, because I really wanted to be able to say, you know what, he's had some close fights, but he is declining. He's never been knocked out. There's no reason he'd be declining. He's still...
Yeah, and his last bout out against Hermanson, I mean, it was so quick that you couldn't even, like, count it against him.
No.
Like, he fell into a leg block, and it was like, well, okay.
And no damage.
Yeah.
But that's not a bad fight to have here in this card. That was a nice
not at all. I got a lot of weird picks this week. I don't think this one's a weird pick, but I think it's one that not many people would make. This next fight at bantamweight, I believe, is going to be fight of the night. I think that this one is so interesting. It is a third meeting between, it is a second meeting between these two, and it is between Pedro Munoz and Jimmy Rivera, 2 guys that have clearly established themselves in the bantamweight division. Jimmy Rivera has losses. He's lost his last 4 of 5, but it's not that bad because his losses are to Petr Yan, Aljamain Sterling, and Marlon Moraes. And it's not that bad at all. And he has wins over John Dodson, Thomas Almeida, Uriah Faber, and a split decision over Pedro Munoz, who he is fighting this weekend. Now, Pedro Munoz has also lost quite a bit lately, but his losses are to Aljamain Sterling, Frankie Edgar, and Jimmy Rivera. And he also has wins over Cody Garbrandt, Rob Font, and I can't remember the guy's first name, but Stamen, a guy who is also super tough at 135. Now, the fact that this is a rematch gets me super excited, and the fact that it was a split decision the first time around, and the fact that these guys finally are getting another crack at each other, I'm excited. I think that this is going to be fight of the night. As much as the main event interests me, I'm not sure how exciting or dynamic that fight is going to be. But I've also got Pedro Munoz. I think he's going to get revenge on Jimmy Rivera. I think his schedule as of late has been tougher. His win against Cody Garbrandt sticks out in my head. I know that everybody hates on Cody Garbrandt. I'm super high on Cody Garbrandt. I think very highly of him, and a win over Cody Garbrandt and a win over Rob Font has aged like fine wine recently, right? Because Rob Font just went out and murdered Marlon Moraes. So, I mean,
that's a good win.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his last 2 wins as Cody Garbrandt and Rob Font, like I'm about it. I'm on Team Pedro Munoz, and I don't believe that he lost to Frankie Edgar in his last loss. I believe that his last 3 wins should have been Frankie Edgar, Cody Garbrandt, and Rob Font.
Yeah, which would be as impressive as anyone's put together 3 wins in that division.
Yes, I agree. So I got Pedro Munoz, and I am calling it that this is going to be the fight of the night.
I could definitely see that. I think it's to be a really good one.
I wish it was 5 rounds, but it's going to be 3.
Yep. Hopefully that means they'll get right to the action then.
Yeah, absolutely. And then do I have this next one or no?
You do.
I do. All right. So our co-main event, not our co-main, our co-main. Yeah.
Yep.
Our co-main event is a women's strawweight bout between Macy Barber and Alexa Grasso. Now, I don't know if I'm foolish for still being on the Macy Barber hype train, but I am still on the Macy Barber hype train. I know she got injured in her last fight. That's not an excuse to losing to Roxanne Modafferi, because I think that that is certainly somebody that is not elite in the division. Roxanne Modafferi is fun to watch, hard to dislike. I like Roxanne Modafferi, but I don't think that the loss looks very good on Macy Barber's record. But that is her only professional loss, and Alexa Grasso is kind of one of those women's fighters that has fought the who's who of everybody. She has losses to Carla Esparza, losses to Tatiana Suarez. She has wins over Karolina Kowalkiewicz and Ronda Marcos. But certainly, I don't believe that this one is going to go her way on Saturday evening. I think that Macy Barber is going to come out and redeclare herself as a top contender in the strawweight division, and hopefully kind of get back to shit talking and being exciting.
Yeah. Did this card have a fight fall through? Was there supposed to be another fight, or is this always the co-main?
I have no idea.
It feels like this shouldn't be a co-main event.
I agree. I feel like I like Kelleher versus Ricky Simone better than this fight, but
yeah,
the first fight on the early prelims. So
what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Well, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
I suppose it's time to really get into it.
Oh my goodness.
I'm on a fucking business trip. I have to bleep that out.
Let's battle. I would take off my horse sweater, but I'm not going to because
you don't take this that seriously.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to get the stats out quick, and then we can talk a little bit more about it.
Oh, man, you have stats.
Our main event, Kamaru Usman. People might know him as Marty Usman versus Gilbert Burns. In this fight, Kamaru Usman is an astounding minus 280 favorite. Gilbert Burns is a plus 220 underdog. Kamaru Usman is 17-1. He is benefiting from a 5-inch reach advantage, and he has wins over Jorge Masvidal, Tyron Woodley, Colby Covington, Rafael Dos Anjos, Damian Maia, and Leon Edwards.
Yeah.
Gilbert Burns is 19-3, 12-3 in the UFC, 6-0 at welterweight. He has wins over Tyron Woodley and Damian Maia, and a loss to Dan Hooker is his most impressive loss, I guess one would say. And they will be fighting this Saturday for the Welterweight Championship belt.
Boy. And as to note, former teammates, former workout partners, sparring partners. So I think they have maybe a better idea of how this is going to go than anybody. But, dude, I'm so excited for this fight. I don't believe that it's going to be a fight that would encapsulate a brand new fan. I think it's going to be a fight that, you know, will have a lot of intricacies and a lot of nuance to it. But, man, I'm so excited. And obviously, if you haven't figured out, fans, we disagree on this fight and have been disagreeing for months and months and months. And finally, this fight is coming to fruition. I've got Marty.
Yep, you have Marty from Nebraska.
Yep.
I'm going to take the guy who is a 4-time Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, 2-time runner-up in multiple weight classes, the guy who knocked Damian Maia out cold, and the guy who beat Tyron Woodley way worse than Kamaru Usman beat him.
Okay. Hold on.
No.
You said the guy that knocked out Damian Maia cold, as if that was impressive.
It was cool when he did it.
It was impressive. But Damian Maia might be the second worst striker in the UFC outside of Ben Askren. Sorry, buddy. Love you,
But
Ben.
then how come Kamaru didn't knock him out?
Because he had to punch his feet.
How come Kamaru was getting pounded by Colby Covington until he knocked him out in the 5th round?
Wasn't. That was not.
How come he didn't beat
Hey,
Tyron Woodley?
All right. Hey, I don't have stats like you do about.
You weren't ready for this. I told you this is a business trip.
About Gilbert Burns, but Kamaru Usman maybe has the best resume of any welterweight ever in the UFC, right? He's unbeaten in the UFC. He had one professional loss before he got to the UFC. He is I believe, a 2-time Division II wrestling national champion. He is, I would say, an above average striker. And in my opinion, the best thing about him is his fight IQ and the fact that he can always control where the fights are fought, right? He's not a guy that's going to come out and have highlight knockouts. He's not a guy that's going to come out and have a brilliant submission finish, but he is going to put himself in a position where he is going to win every single time, right? And I guarantee you that he knows not only the strengths of Gilbert Burns from watching him, but he's felt Gilbert Burns, right? They've been workout partners for years before this. And man, Gilbert Burns was holding him up on his shoulders when he won. He was a little fanboy. He's like, I'm so happy that my big brother won, right? That's big brother syndrome. He's not beating Kamaru Usman.
Kamaru Usman knows that Gilbert is better than him, and he's going to lose. Where is Kamaru better than Gilbert Burns?
In the octagon. That's where, in the brain.
I think the only place Kamaru Usman may be better is in the clinch.
He's also going to be able to control, right?
Why? But Gilbert Burns knows just as well as Kamaru. Gilbert knows what Kamaru wants to do.
Yeah, it doesn't mean nobody has been able to stop it outside of Colby Covington, who
No one stopped. Gilbert Burns has been on, in the past 2 years, has been on just as good of a tear.
No, he has not. A, no, he has not. And B, he has not fought nearly as good of competition.
I guess he didn't
Yeah, what do you got for that one?
I guess he didn't fight Colby Covington.
He didn't fight George Masvidal.
Oh,
He didn't fight Leon Edwards.
George Masvidal would not make it through a fight against Gilbert Burns.
I agree, but he did not prove
On
it.
the ground, submitted.
Listen,
I can't believe these odds are this far apart.
I'm telling you that Kamaru Usman might be outside. I mean, now that Habib is supposedly retired, I believe that Kamaru Usman is the most well-rounded fighter in the UFC.
I'm glad you went well-rounded and not best.
No, I don't believe that he's the best, but I believe that a conversation of most well-rounded is him and Volkanovski. And I believe that he even wins that, I think, easily.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't argue that he's not the most well-rounded. I just think Gilbert Burns is going to give him more problems for sure than if this is a much harder fight than Jorge Masvidal is. The other thing I dislike is I heard Kamaru Usman talking about how he wants to fight Masvidal again. And I think that's because Kamaru Usman is scared of Colby Covington. He doesn't want to have to do that fight again.
I don't know if he's scared of him, but I do believe that Colby Covington is the worst matchup for Kamaru Usman in this division. And I think it showed in their title fight, right? I mean, Kamaru Usman got the knockout, but I mean, that was
Kamaru Usman was about 2 minutes away from losing his belt.
Yes, I agree. And I also think that Colby Covington would beat Gilbert Burns, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah, these guys all. These
three are very, very close. I believe that those three are distinctly separating themselves from the pack at the welterweight division.
I think, yes, I agree. I think Gilbert Burns has the best knockout power out of all three of these guys.
Yes, I would agree.
I also think he is the best submission artist of these three.
I agree, but I don't think that he has the ability to dictate where the fight happens.
So for Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington to beat Gilbert Burns, they need to beat him for a whole 25 minutes.
They've got to smother him.
Yes, and where if they slip at some point, if Gilbert lands a shot, if he gets him on the ground, if he gets him in a bad position, that gives Gilbert Burns a chance to end these fights at any point. And that is why I favorite Gilbert Burns. I understand how Kamaru Usman would be the favorite and that he may very well beat him, But I think Gilbert Burns has a path to victory in ending the fight that these two do not have.
I agree. I think if it goes to a decision, I think there's no way that Gilbert Burns beats him in a decision. But I do believe that if Gilbert Burns wins, it will be via finish. I agree with you there. But that ain't happening.
But that's I'm so excited for this main event.
Dude, it's gonna be such a.
I think it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know if it's going to be a super exciting fight. Like I said, because I think that Kamaru Usman's path to victory is to slow it down and to drag it out and to smother him and to take him to deep waters. I don't believe that it's going to be this shootout, and I don't think anybody expects it to be. But I think this is a fight that is for the true MMA fans that understand what they're watching.
Mm-hmm. And I hate Kamaru Usman.
I like Snoozman.
But every second this match is in the clinch or against the cage is better for Kamaru. That gives him a better chance to win. And I think we have both said all we can say about that fight. We know who we're picking.
Mm-hmm.
This was kind of a nice, quick episode. Hopefully the people enjoy us getting right to business.
Absolutely. Also, I will note Kamaru Usman's foot stomps are also devastating. Although kind of an unwritten rule that you don't do that. Not only does he have foot stomps, but he also has foot punches. I don't know if you've seen that part where he grabs Damian Maia's foot and he starts hammering it. That's lethal. He attacks the feet.
TKO via foot punches.
Foot punches. Oh, but yeah.
Oh my God. Can you imagine if, like, let's say he would have punched Damian Maia, like, right in the right spot and broke his foot, and they had to stop the fight, and it would say TKO via foot punches.
Crazy.
Dude,
and I like if you have somebody's foot held in your hand, I'm trying to and you like hit it at the right angle, like you could definitely break a foot.
Oh yeah.
Sure. He didn't like try. He like kind of like hit it on the side. Like I was like, come on, man.
Do some damage.
Yeah.
Hit it on the ankle.
Snap it.
Yeah.
But I agree. I think we've said our piece. This may have been our shortest episode ever, but I'm happy. I think that we covered our points and we're ready to go.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Everybody, make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube. Please leave a review if you are listening to us via a podcast hosting service. And thank you so much.